New from Left Coast Graphics, the Enamelian Falcon spaceship pin. Collect them all.
Hey, hey.
Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing well, man. How many of us got babies to go play with every day now?
Little
Things are going
humans.
well for you, Eric?
Yeah, I've been telling people I've lost my grasp on the concepts of time and space. Let's just put it that way.
How's Mama doing? Mama's doing good too?
She's doing all right. She's struggling more than me, but that's because she's the source of food.
Yeah, 98.5% of the time with Mama,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So all the families, got their
Yeah,
chances and visits in, and
Yep, everyone's come in. My mom came in, and she's been staying with us, but she's going back to Florida tomorrow.
she's going
Are
back
they
already?
both upstairs?
Yeah.
Are they both upstairs right now? Like you're.
My mom is with our baby Freya, and my wife is pumping.
Oh,
Pumping. So yeah, we were all waiting backstage for Vern to show up, and he never showed up. So we just said, "Fuck it, let's just go live."
yeah.
Snooze you lose.
What's
Hello,
going on,
Vern. Hello, Gerard.
Good morning,
Rolando.
Gerard. Mr. Rolando, sir, the finest moderator in all of the YouTube. We got Super John and Sir Eric here today. Again, I didn't bring any screenshots in or download a video of the the final episode, chapter 25, season 3, Mandalorian finale, all those words. But instead, I think the three of us actually more liked it this year than disliked it. So
Yeah.
we can just talk about what we thought of the whole season in general, and maybe some bonus. We could start off with some of the most fun stuff of this finale, or maybe stuff we didn't love about the finale. So I'll just start off and say overall for the season, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Of the 3 Mando seasons, I'm gonna say it's my third favorite of the 3 seasons, but I still love it. I'm so happy that there's modern Star Wars content for people of my generation and whatnot to enjoy. I do enjoy the characters and the whole Mandoverse and what's going on with it. And I know the story's not over. We got continuation things going on with some more Boba Fett stories, hopefully, with the Ahsoka series, and then the Skeleton Crew. Again, all these are in a similar timeline of this Mandoverse post Return of the Jedi era, and I really dig it. I think it went out with a bang, if you want to call it that way. This season, they kind of made it seem like they could just end this series now and never revisit it, and we kind of can't bitch about it, like, because they did kind of close the book in a way. But then again, we know they're coming back. They've already confirmed a writing of a season 4 and pre-production and whatnot. But yeah, my one thing about this episode and this finale in general is I just didn't like the little crop to
The circle.
and
It
then
was
roll
kind of weird.
credits.
Yeah.
Well,
And then no post-credit scene, because I think everyone was kind of like, "Oh, please be a post-credit scene, please, please, show something," and then nothing, right? So I was like, "Oh, a little bit of disappointment, not just disappointed in general, but as I'm one of those guys, I have super high expectations. I just got knocked down a step, like, so nothing to piss me off or make me hate Kathleen Kennedy or Mickey Mouse. I was just like, oh, they could have gave us a little extra, peanut butter on that sandwich or something. But I thought it was awesome. I thought the fights.
Well, a lot of people said they expected to see Ahsoka like walk around the corner when Grogu's sitting by the pond playing with the frog, just to say goodbye.
Like, of course.
Just to say goodbye on her way out. You know what I mean? Because she's going to leave to go to the Outer Rim, or whatever. So
lots of little things. I thought, I don't know if they were like removed or edited out or not added for whatever story reason. Like, I thought it was a brilliant opportunity to maybe have Din Djarin remove his helmet while he's sitting on a patio with nobody in sight.
Yeah,
And
that
now
too.
there's new Mando rules, like so. I'm like, really? Like they couldn't just do that at least? I'm sure
Well,
the
are
actors
they?
showed up for at least 1 hour of filming in all of 2023 or 2022, whenever they filmed
Do
this. So I was kind of like,
but
really?
I guess the question though is, do the like the armor herself is going to still live by her rule of never taking that helmet off,
I
but
think so.
she is also okay with the other Mandalorians like Bo-Katan and her sect taking their helmet off. There's no longer an argument about it. It's kind of more like the armorer and her group of people accepted, we have our ways and you have your ways with regard to that helmet thing, but we are all Mandalorian still.
At
You know
least
what I
for
mean?
now. At
Yeah, at
least
least for now.
Yeah, there'll always be new rules and voting and democracies and whatnot. You never know, right?
Because
What
that helmet,
futures to
because
come.
that helmet thing, quite frankly, was I've gone back and watched all of the Rebels and all of the Clone Wars episodes related to the Mandalorians from season 1 of Clone Wars all the way through to season 7 or 8, whatever it was, and then all 4 seasons of Rebels, where they had. In the last couple weeks, I've gone back and watched every single thing with the Mandalorians and Bo-Katan and her sister and all that stuff. And never once does any of them say you can never remove your helmet.
No, but I think what happened
So
was that was a more recent development to kind of create like there was like a schism in Death Watch, and then they like there
even within Death
the
Watch,
armor
they're all taking their helmets off.
but the armor said like Death Watch is no more. They kind of like fractured off into their own kind of splinter groups and adopted their own kind of doctrine and dogma, which like that group basically went by some of the more traditional old ways supposedly. But you're right, we never heard anything mentioned about like keeping helmets on and
but they do
and any of the other canonical material.
What's really cool is they do at one point talk about the Darksaber and how the Mandalorian Jedi created it and it was left in the Jedi Temple, and then Mandalorians led by Vizsla, he sacked the temple and stole back the Darksaber. And so I thought it was pretty cool that they went through a little bit of that lore, you know what I mean? Like even in the Clone Wars, you know.
Well, you're looking at it, you're bringing up the animation and some of the story that goes along with that, because there's 7 years of that story that was told, a lot. But I look at like the original Boba Fett or any characters that wore helmets, except for Han and Luke in the Stormtrooper disguise. Boba Fett never took off his helmet in in Empire and Return of the Jedi, but then again, he also had 82 seconds of screen time, or 3 minutes total, I guess. But then right away we got the Book of Boba Fett, so we got more of him without a helmet than with his helmet. So the Boba Fett, the character in general, I always wondered now, because there's people that say, oh, he's not a Mando, or of course he's a Mando. He's the original Mando. He's the oldest Mando and most long-living Mando of all the Mandos. So he has the chain code. He's showed it off. He's proved it. So I wonder which kind of, if he was ever with a faction, not that we ever think of him as being with a faction. We just know some stories from comic books and past legend stories. But I wonder if Boba Fett's a believer of the the Death Watch side of keeping your.
I think he's as independent as you can get. I don't think he'd align with Bo-Katan or the armors.
I also wonder why Boba was not part of this Mandalorian story as much as he was the first, the 2 seasons where he actually was introduced in the Mandalorian too, right? So his name was not even mentioned, let alone.
It's because
he's doing his own thing, right?
Plus, I think that his gene code is a singular clan. I don't think it's because there is a spot where Obi-Wan Kenobi says that he in Clone Wars where he goes, I've met a Mandalorian. I fought against Jango Fett or whatever, and the guy got pissed off, and he's like, Jango Fett was never a true Mandalorian. And he goes, however he acquired that armor is beyond me, but he's not a Mandalorian. And then later on, they do like other Mandalorians accept Jango Fett as a Mandalorian. So it's kind of like, I think that there was bad blood. Like he left, either he got exiled because of something he did, or he left Mandalore and it wasn't on good terms with the leadership. And his clan,
might not ever
if
get.
he was even in a clan, his clan was dissolved. So basically, he became a singular guy that was exiled, who technically is a Mandalorian. But with Boba Fett being his kid, you know, technically a clone of him, a kid of him, whatever.
Yeah.
It's he's still like an exiled clan. He's a clan of one. You know what I mean? He's not.
Yeah, I totally think
Boba
Fett is a Mandalorian.
It doesn't matter
if Omega, and so is every last clone. To me, they're all Mandalorians. If they're clones of an original Mandalorian, then they're the same thing. Like if Moff Gideon ends up cloning himself, then he's a clone of Moff. He's still a Moff Gideon. Like you can't take away the Moff part or the Gideon part. He's a photocopy of it. Or
the way I think of Mandalorians is it's more of a religion and like a creed than like a race.
Yeah,
and whatnot.
Especially now because they have all the foundlings and stuff like that. So it's like
right.
And Grogu, the first we know of that's not like a human.
Well, I don't know. I was reading that too. I was like, are we going to take like if they took some of those helmets off, are we going to see Rhodians under there? Are they going to be like a Rhodian or a Sulstin or something like?
An Ithorian Mando.
You need a really funky helmet.
That helmet.
Like absolutely. Like if this is a story and a culture with the Mandalorians that they would continue on, whether it be Disney Plus, comic books, video games, then absolutely, I totally think that they do. If they haven't already, I'm not aware of, aliens and stuff being Mandalorians, but I'm sure. It's even one of the upcoming shows that we haven't seen yet, Skeleton Crew or Acolyte or the Rey movie down the road. Maybe we do see, a new creature dawn in, some Beskar and becoming even like the Stormtroopers in this most recent Mandalorian episode. They were different shapes and sizes. They weren't like, I thought, are they clones of something? But I mean, the one guy was a little stockier and the other person looked like it could have been a girl, and their helmet seemed like it was 2 sizes smaller. Like it could have been just a little bit forced perspective on the way they filmed it, but they weren't all identical. Like how we're to believe all clones are basically the identical shape and weight and size. And Vern, I got one theory right. I saw the armor had a jetpack on last week. I'm like, she's gonna eventually fly. Why would they give her a jetpack? And that was my favorite part of this last episode was the aerial man-to-man combat with these Mandalorians flying.
Yeah.
Like we've seen so many times in the cartoons, right? Like there's lots of cool space battles with their flying in with their jetpacks. But this is our first good look at, Mando's flying, commandos flying and, fighting hand to hand. And then the armor smashing with tongs and a hammer. I thought that was freaking just brilliant, man.
Yeah.
And we learned that most of them are fireproof. Because that was the most used flamethrowers I'd ever seen in any Star Wars was this episode.
Not 100%, because you'll notice that when because I watched this episode 3 times now, and there's a moment when he flames Din Djarin and Din grunts like he's feeling the heat. So, and then the Stormtrooper guy, when he's shooting the fire at him, he screams a little bit like he's getting burned. But then once the fire goes off him, he recovers quickly and gets back into the battle.
So the armor got back up. Yeah.
So I think the armor protects you from the flamethrowers to a certain point. Like if you really left it on them for a long time, because they were that Stormtrooper clearly screamed and was feeling the heat. But
You
as
gotta-
soon as it took off him, he recovered quickly and got back into the battle. So
I mean,
I think he would have been burned eventually if you left it on him for a long time. But
Sure.
The-
I
the
agree
way-
with that.
the way I think about things with the flamethrowers and whatnot is, yeah, the armor would have some level of protection, but the undersuit has to be like some kind of like flame retardant kind of material,
because it wasn't
kind of
burning.
like what stuntmen use in films and whatnot.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
so a
You-
different
you'd still
material than
feel
his
hot.
cape, because his
Yeah.
cape has holes in it, and I guess
Yeah.
it
It's
does
tattered
burn a
and
little bit.
That was the only thing. His cape should have took a little bit of fire damage because that didn't light up at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
eventually just throw it away.
And it
'cause
was
it's
directly
hindering
on it.
your-
But
your-
that kind of stuff doesn't take me out of the show.
No.
The one thing that
But
was like,
I was gonna say, but that's a difference to why, like the flamethrowers like that, in the way that you saw that fire shooting out and the color of the flame, it's not hot enough to like burn the armor and melt things. It's not like it's 10,000 degrees. It's like it's probably like 500 to 800 degrees. You know what I mean? So it's like a fire that you built a campfire out of. It's not hot enough to where even if your flesh went through it, you could probably wave your hand through it. You know,
Yeah,
it's
who knows?
where
Like, maybe Jim Jarren is sitting
when
on
the
that
ship
patio
when the
all
ship
burnt
blew
underneath,
up,
like,
where like when the cruiser crashed into the planet and that exploded with all the jet fuel and everything that's in there, that fuel burns at 5,000 or 6,000 degrees. So that's why you saw Gideon disintegrate in that fire.
you didn't know.
Yeah, you
didn't.
did.
No, you didn't. Nobody.
Parts of it went like this, and you
Even-
saw the light
No,
shine
no.
through.
I
Look at it.
go watch it again. I did
I
not
watched
see
it
like
3 times, dude.
I didn't see like Beskar alloy armor just like
Because the cape goes up and
incinerate.
dissolves like it
Nope.
turns into little pieces, and then
Nobody-
like his armor
nobody-
like glows.
nobody,
before
no
he-
trace. Like it's
right
possible.
before he disappears, the armor glows.
It's
So it
possible.
Are
looks
you
like it
talking Moff
burned.
Gideon?
It looks like
Yeah.
it burned right through. It burned through
I
the
think
cape
we
and then
saw
burned
him
through the armor.
doing the Jesus Christ
So,
pose.
yeah, he did kind of.
And then
move
the
his arms up.
cameraman turned around to look at Bo-Katan and Grogu and Mando. So like
I
they
think he's still
purposely
alive.
didn't show us
No, body.
whether Moff Gideon took off with his jetpack or turned into a skull and skeleton
You
like the
can
Emperor.
see it. He
They
gets
purposely like they changed the scene so quick. It's weird. I watched that scene a couple times too, and I watched it to the last frame, and the last frame is still just him doing the Jesus Christ pose.
You just don't
There's
see
no
enough. Like
skeleton or
he could be dead, but he's most likely still alive because
I think if he is dead, it was just a version of him that died. Because
I don't.
I've seen a couple people
The
talking about this now.
mustache
Like we
theory.
saw clones of him. We saw
Yeah, but he
12
says
clones of him,
you
and they're
ruined
wondering
my.
why would you clone him as an old man? And I think, well, they're cloning how old you are right now. They're not
Yeah,
re-cloning
that's
you,
how
and
it-
then you don't
yeah.
start as a baby again. You're a 55-year-old man.
Yeah,
But they
Hollywood
also
did the
he
same
didn't have
thing.
his mustache, which I've never seen Giancarlo without a mustache in any role he's ever done. He had it in Do the Right Thing. He had it in every episode of Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad. It was just his character. He has a mustache. I don't know if it was like that. Who's that guy that played the original Joker? Like his. He had it in
Cesar
his-
Romero.
Yeah, Cesar Romero. I'm not shaving my mustache. It's on my
It's
contract.
painted over. Yeah.
So I look at Giancarlo as a similar, he's a fantastic actor. I'm a little disappointed he only got like 8 minutes of acting time in all of 2023. Like, give the man a job. Like, don't just save him for the last 2 episodes.
They left it open ended. It could have been a clone. The clone could have died. The clone could have survived. It could have been
I don't think it was a clone.
the original. I personally don't think it was a clone because of like what you were saying, John,
He
because he
said-
was talking about
yeah.
his clones surviving, and you have to figure
and
that
they would be
if it was, and
he
they
was
would be force sensitive.
force, so he would have been force
Right.
sensitive.
Hey, Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, the other
I was
reason-
I'm
wondering
with you
because
there.
And
he
the other
obviously
thing
had
is,
some super strength.
no,
when
it's
he
because that
crushed
was
her
the
hand
suit was
with the-
robotic. if you
Yeah, but
listen,
his glove was not robotic. It was
no,
literally
listen,
like
listen
home
to
You
it.
heard the motors.
Listen to the
He had an
sound.
Iron Man suit.
Every time he walks, every time he turns, every time he moves, it goes.
Yeah,
a little bit. Yeah,
it was like Iron
hear
Man
it
suit.
every
Yeah,
time. So it's got mechanical power to it inside that armor.
I just
Beskar
didn't
man.
see any armor or servos or in his
You don't need to see that.
in his fingers.
It's Star
and
Wars.
hands.
No, it's
It is
just
Star
that's how
Wars,
it
but
is.
I mean, that's the first time we've ever seen like super
powered
strength
suit,
in someone's hands. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
but
don't know.
they have that kind of stuff in Iron Man, right?
Now, one question I have is, was he referring to his own suit as the next generation
Yes.
of Death Troopers?
Yep.
Or was he referring to them as the white suited guys?
No.
So the white suited guys were just normal.
The way I interpreted it was the white suited troopers were stormtroopers wearing Beskar alloy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And those were the grunts. But what he was saying was his clones would be the next gen version of Dark Troopers in the Iron Man or Beskar Man suits.
Yeah. And that's why they were powered like a robot. They're like half robot, half suit.
And they'd also be force wielded. Yeah.
They would have not taught us, but gave us a little more detail on that instead of literally like one line of dialogue.
Yeah.
I made these, super suits, and like, okay, now next scene. Let's just go to a scene at a canteen and another planet. Like, it was like, wait a minute.
But that's how Star Wars is. That's how Star Wars is. We never got an explanation for Stormtrooper armor. All that stuff with it being Durasteel or Plasteel or any of that came out later on. The fans and West Coast Games made that up, or West End Games. Sorry, it wasn't like, you know what I mean. So to me, part of Star Wars is leaving a lot of stuff open ended for you to figure it out or discuss amongst your friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think when they leave 101% of things open-ended, like with this season, I kind of feel like they could have just not made this season and just start with season 4. Like, there's nothing that actually happened this season that adds to anything in the fucking Star Wars universe.
Well, I think so.
Can I contradict that?
Bo-Katan and the whole Mandalorian.
Hold on. I'll tell you why, Rick.
Is still Lord of Tatooine, and Bo-Katan didn't change that. They did your armor, or Din Djarin, or Grogu, or Ahsoka, or Moff Gideon to be,
they're back on Mandalorian.
Right. So here's
still Luke.
Here's why this season was changed. Here's why this season was important. Not as much to Din and Grogu's story, but to the kind of plot thread that they were developing in the first 2 seasons. In the first season, it was mostly Din and protecting Grogu, and then they expanded. They caught up with Bo-Katan and the Night Owls, and he took his helmet off, and then he had to become a Mandalorian again because he was an apostate or whatever, bathed in the living water. So, and then there was the whole Luke and Ahsoka stuff. So what I think season 3 ended up being was the kind of last hurrah of this giant crossover event to just tie up all of those plot threads, so that the end of season 3 to me was the fork in the road where, okay, we're back on Mandalore. Mandalorians are back there and whatnot. Din and Grogu can start doing their own thing and having their own adventures, helping the New Republic and doing probably what ended up what used to be the Rangers of the New Republic series. And then they could do, if they wanted, a completely different show with Bo-Katan and the armor just developing the resurgence of Mandalore and whatnot, and then bring things back together. So this was kind of a fork in the road so that they could pivot back to what I think the original intent was for the series, focusing more on Din and Grogu, at least, because it almost season 2 and leading into season 3 made the Mandalorian just too big of like, it was great for people. I think it was great for people like us who like a lot of the Star Wars stuff, but for people who don't pay attention to every bit of Star Wars content out there, it may have been a bit harder to follow.
Plus, I think this gives them a reason, like, because what I fully expect to see, like, it might take a couple seasons of Ahsoka, but I fully expect them to bring. There's going to be a big battle. This is going to lead to some culmination of something. So there's going to be like a bad guy. It's not just going to be like 2 ships and Thrawn. There's going to be an entire army. And
that's where I'm scared, because
you'll have
we
Mando.
should have saw a battle Wednesday.
You'll have
like,
Mando
we really
and
should have saw a
Grogu.
battle. It's been 5 years. We have yet to see a battle like in any Star Wars show, and it's called Star Wars.
Well, there was
not,
kind of a
not
battle.
Star one-on-one battle.
They had all those TIE fighters fight that.
We saw
They
skirmishes.
almost had some TIE fighters.
Skirmishes. There were
It was like
skirmishes.
44 seconds of TIE fighters, and
what I mean is, you can't just have Mando, Grogu, and Ahsoka with Sabine and Ezra, 5 people fight 100,000 stormtroopers and Thrawn. So the army, those guys will go after Thrawn and his group, but the army that's going to be taking care of the stormtroopers is going to be these Mandalorians. So that's why Mandalore. That's why Mandalore had to be like put back together and be their own thing again, because at some point 5 years down the road, when they finally have the culmination of this huge story and all the stuff fit together, there's going to be an army of bad guys that these army of good guys has to take out. And for some reason right now, I don't think it's going to be the New Republic against Thrawn's empire.
No,
you know what I mean?
The grist. Well, no,
I think the New Republic's still going to be in denial, and it's going to be up to Ahsoka and those guys to stop Mando, Ahsoka, and Ezra, Sabine to stop Thrawn in his resurgence. You know what I mean?
See, I don't think you're watching Star Wars right. Thrawn is not a villain or a bad guy. I don't think that
she calls him heir to the Empire.
Not common knowledge.
Right in the trailer, she says he's the heir to the Empire.
Yeah, but it's Ahsoka. Ahsoka's not a hero either. Ahsoka is at the same level as Thrawn. They're gray area. They're not good or bad. I know people like Ahsoka, but she's not all of that shit that people think she is. She's just a character that Dave Filoni made.
Well, no.
Sadly, she's still alive in this universe.
Consider Ahsoka's perspective, though. The last time Thrawn was seen was that battle over Lothal, right? When Ezra took Thrawn off with his fleet with the Purgils, right? The last time people saw Thrawn, he was still very much like a servant of the Empire and whatnot. So to me, everyone's still assuming Thrawn's the baddie, right? I think that's a giant misdirection. If you read the Thrawn novels, he is an antagonist. He's space imperial, like Sherlock Holmes, essentially. But I think what's going to happen is he's going to come back, and like the Imperial Shadow Council that we saw was like, oh, we're just waiting, like the second coming of the Emperor being Thrawn to lead us back into good graces. But Thrawn's going to be like, nah, there's this other thing called the grists in the new Thrawn books that's a bigger threat. So my guess is and I don't really care. Like I'm just here for the ride, and I'm not going to be disappointed no matter how they play things out. But
sure, I agree. Me too. I'm going to enjoy all of it.
But having read what I've read and seen what I've seen, I'd expect the Shadow Council that we saw to kind of like have their own kind of infighting and like power vacuum. And the New Republic will probably wipe those suckers out, except for Brendel Hux, because he goes off and starts the First Order, right?
Sure. And I saw a lot of hate over the past 3 days, not from the finale episode, but the episode that had, Pershing, that, the half hour.
I like that one.
And that was like some of the, that was I'm not going to say the best part of the season, but it was the part that made me feel like I was back in the Star Wars universe, like Andor did. Andor kept me in make-believe land without smoking the cannabis. I believed I was in Star Wars land, even though there's like beach balls and lawn chairs and silly stuff like that. It still felt really, really good. The music, the characters, a robot walking by, whatever it was. That episode of Mando, again, you could tell the directors were fans of Blade Runner and things like that. You got that influence. And we saw a little bit of that again in this finale episode. So I was kind of hoping they would touch on that storyline a little bit instead of the one introduction to it this season. Do it for half hour, Pershing and the Imperial spy chick who's got freaking pipes, for days. I like that character now. And like, all we got is her hanging out with, the ladies' man for half a scene, learning some stuff that probably she shouldn't be learning because she's an ex-Imperial person who's actually like a triple spy. I thought we deserved a little more of that storyline, and this season felt to me like maybe they just removed 2 chapters, and I'm like, I could see exactly where they would have fit those in. And if that's not the case, maybe they shouldn't have included those scenes. And just midweek or on a Sunday on Disney Plus, here's a 15-minute episode, 24.5 of The Mandalorian with this little Pershing story. Like maybe, because they're not, people are, all I see is more people complaining about that part of the episode or that part of the season than I see people appreciating it for what it was. It was answering some questions, but I mean, and then just skipping to the next scene, and then on to the story again. So that part wasn't my favorite part about The Mandalorian, but I mean, I wish they would have gave us a little more of it, so we don't have to wait 2 years for some of the questions we have to be answered. Like some of these actors might not even be alive in 2 years, and we're left with these open-end story things, and I'm like, come on, man! Like
I can understand and appreciate people's criticisms of like individual bits of the season, whether it's the stuff with Dr. Pershing or whatever else. But I think a lot of that criticism is probably going to get over exaggerated with the kind of like week by week nature of how the episodes drop. If you were to binge the season, I don't think you would overthink that quite as much. You'd be able to see the progression a little bit faster in the plot. So I think in the grand scheme of things, like I think it's necessary, like those kind of storylines were like necessary world building to show how the New Republic wasn't really set up to succeed.
See, this is where I
get it. I don't think I didn't need any world building after like the first episode of Mandalorian season 1. I did not need any more world building. I'm in Star Wars land. Yeah, it's mostly a desert planet, and everything's kind of grungy and dirty. But I mean, that's the world that Star Wars is in. Unless you're on an Alderaan or a fancy, rich, penthouse suite or something, that's the world you live in. Just on Dino's comment here, the Moff Gideon part was lame. I think the whole Moff Gideon character in general was they wasted him, man. They wasted such a talented actor. Like Andor, we have that wicked dialogue from 2 different actors, right? We got not Serial, Andy Serkis' character,
Kino
super wicked, awesome dialogue, and he's not like the main villain of the show. He's just one of the characters, not even the main character, just one of the characters. And then we have the other, Luthen's dialogue, one of the better episodes of the whole season because of these epic acting moments by these 2 really good actors. And then the one actor who's better than all of them combined and has more awards and credits has a couple of cheesy lines in one episode of. So I'm really, really disappointed that he wasn't utilized for what he is, man. Like some of his lines were they were garbage, to be fair. Like, I don't know if there was any ad lib. I kind of think there wasn't. And if there was, they made him know, you got to read it exactly like the mouse said to read it. Because
See,
So I
but
was a
this is
little
also
disappointed in
why
Moff Gideon's character. I just wanted to comment on Dino here.
this is also why I don't think they should have seasons anymore. Like we're in a streaming world where there's no like rating system. There's no like you have to have a fall season and a spring season and blah blah blah. I just think that they should film 3 or 4 episodes, work on them in post production, and then if they're going to release them weekly, they do them weekly. So then they have 3 or 4 weeks off, and then the cast gets together and films 3 or 4 more episodes. Then the cast leaves and has 3 or 4 weeks off, while the post production guys finish each one and put them out weekly, and then the cast recombines. They film through, so we never have a pause as a viewer. We get a new episode every week. They can go wherever they want. They can do this week. We're seeing what's happening with Ahsoka. This week we're seeing what's happening with Moff Gideon. This week we're seeing what happens with the Mandalorian, and the story just continues from start to finish.
That would be awesome, but that's just a logistical nightmare. Right.
Considering they all have other jobs, right?
What's the difference? What's the difference of doing a 22 or 23 episode television show that we used to get in one season? You know, we would have 22 episodes of the A-Team for one season. Then they would take a break for the summer, and we'd get a spring season of 22 episodes again.
Post-production on those didn't take as much time, to be fair. Right.
But post-production in the Mandalorian show, I think some of that was done in a week.
It's all filmed in the view thing anyways. They're little
Stagecrafts, blue screen stuff. Like they could have filmed, like what we watched Tuesday at midnight, they literally could have filmed that one. I kind of, part of me thinks some of that shit was filmed on Monday. Kind of like, and that's why I'm not worried. I'm not scared. I'm not concerned. But I don't think that's how the season 3 was supposed to be. I think there's stuff missing, and they just had to let's get her done. We got a schedule to keep. We got another show already in post production. So Billy Bob Green, who's working the computer animation, we need him to finish this Ahsoka episode because I don't know, man. Because
I don't like having to wait now.
Forgot to do. Or decided,
I don't like the idea that there's no Star Wars this week. I just have to sit here
that kind of
sucks, 3 months until something else comes out. That's ridiculous.
That's unfortunate. Yeah. I think we'd all like. It was kind of weird that they had the Bad Batch and Mando overlapping. They probably should have staggered those so you at least get something every week. Scheduling of content can and probably should improve over time. But to me, I don't know. Like I like the season. I'm excited for where things are going. To me, this was just a massive kind of reset button for refocusing the show.
Oh, 100% it was a reset button because
I love every single thing Star Wars, every bit, 100%. I think these television shows are better than anything we've had in the last 10 years. I just don't. I can't believe some of the complaints I've been seeing because
what you just said, Eric. Like you can see where it's going. Like I just don't. I don't see where it's going. Like there's nothing.
No, I agree with Eric.
Before they even announced Mando was going to be a TV show, like in 2016 or whatever. If it never existed and we woke up today and we're like, there's nothing has changed in the Star Wars. Like the Mandalorians are still a bunch of ragtag people that live on, a ugly planet. Nothing is different. Like no one died. No one, I don't know. And I guess that's okay because the Star Wars the story's already been told. Like they're talking about the song's already been written. Like the song of Luke Skywalker and Anakin and Darth Vader, it's already been written. So there's no story they can tell that should influence our opinion on any of the existing stories. All I can do is just shoehorn in some extra candy and
Well, that goes back.
They are explaining a lot of the dynamics of like what happened post Return of the Jedi with the New Republic and trying to set the stage for what happened in the sequels. They are trying to fill that gap and use.
And I really hope
the series
Thrawn input is a big part of it because
it will be.
Even from my 20s, like shit, this is still 25 years ago, I think, where I read the Heir to the Empire and the Shadows of the Empire books, which are the stories between, Star Wars, Empire, and Return of the Jedi. Like those are the stories that weren't canon, but those are the only stories we had. It was comic books and novels that we got to read, and that's all we had. Now they're pulling from that story, and I like that. And now they're going to tell that story, whether it's similar, identical. We already know some characters will be the same with Thrawn and his admiral, his little sidekick there.
And they mentioned
but then
yeah.
add
Yeah,
Ahsoka
Pauline.
into the story.
Yeah.
And probably remove Mara Jade's characters in a way, like So they've got
Well,
story
at
to go on.
At least if she's in it, she wouldn't be probably with Luke the way it was.
And I love the week-to-week aspect of it and season-to-season, if that's what's going to continue on, because it works for this universe. And just to make a quick comparison to like a TV series called Beef, which I watched on Netflix a couple weeks ago, that's a show I needed to watch like 8 hours in a row, on a weekend kind of thing. I wouldn't have watched it week by week by week by week over 8 weeks. I wouldn't have had the same anticipation, because when an episode ended, it was like,
I didn't make it to the end.
Oh, and I
didn't
can just watch
the
right
last
away.
two.
The story continues, and my excitement is still there. And if it ended and I had to wait a week to watch it again, I probably wouldn't have that same.
Yeah,
joy.
definitely. Because I didn't even make it to the last 2 episodes of Beef because the story had changed so much. In the beginning, it was so good that it's like these characters have a beef about each other. But then by the time you get to the 6th or 7th episode, it's just kind of like, their beef's done. It's gone. It doesn't matter. I got bored with it, so I stopped watching.
So, favorite part of the last episode, this finale, like you Ahsoka loving, Bo-Katan loving folks. What was your favorite parts?
Well, I really wanted to say one quick point. I think what you're getting at least from my perspective, was with all these other stories that are going on that they're adding to the Star Wars universe, like this whole thing with the Mandalorians, and now if Thrawn becomes a big battle and all that stuff, it's to me it's reducing the significance of the Skywalker saga, because the opening thing that we saw back in 1977 when we first went to the theater was this happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So for some reason, this story had been passed down from generation to generation, from planet to planet, from galaxy to galaxy, because not only is it wasn't in our galaxy, it's in a galaxy far, far away. So alien things have been talking about this story for thousands of years, so much that it transferred from a different galaxy to our galaxy. This story has become multi-galactic. It's like
absolutely.
And then,
you know what I mean?
And then
the Skywalker
aliens probe George Lucas to do an interception at him.
So what happened in the Skywalker family? So basically, what I mean is what happened in the Skywalker family was so important that it had to be told for thousands and thousands of years, through generations, from planet to planet, through galaxy to galaxy, to get to us, to see this tagline a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. This story happened. So what it means is that never before in history had they seen an empire take over a quarter of the galaxy, and the Jedi be killed out, and these good guys have to come together to battle this evil empire, and then the Skywalkers started and then extinguished this galactic battle that happened. So meaning that nothing could ever be more bad in the galaxy than the Empire, and nothing could ever be more good than the Skywalker family overcoming that. Because otherwise, why would you keep talking about it? If the Sith Wars that happened a couple thousand years ago, apparently they weren't as important, because we didn't hear about them first. We didn't hear about that stuff. You know what I mean? What's going on with Thrawn can't be as important, because that's no longer like something that's being told thousands of years ago in a galaxy far, far away. You know what I mean?
But
So
consider the real life parallels, though, right? Like you have like World Wars, good guys versus bad guys, essentially. The good guys essentially beat the big factions of bad guys, but there are still little pockets of bad guys floating around trying to get power. That's where we're at.
Yeah,
in
but
this
do
story.
you
It doesn't. It doesn't
what I mean
diminish.
is, do you tell their story thousands of years later? That's the thing. Like if we go back in our own mythology and our own history, we hear about like the Battle of Troy. You know what I mean? That lives on. But all the other small battles that happened around it before and after, we know almost nothing about.
But the reason the reason this matters in the Star Wars universe is because those little pockets of bad guy factions and in the remnants of the Empire ended up going off and creating the First Order for the sequel trilogy. So
but what I'm getting at is,
that's why it matters, at least to them.
To me, it kind of diminishes. It diminishes the Skywalker saga. The sequels really did it for me too, because the sequels, I'm like, the Skywalkers were supposed to be so important that we're talking about them thousands of years later, galaxies away from where the story happened. So, but yet when it ends, we don't see Rey bringing it back to the importance that it's supposed to be, and for where the sequels leave it, there is no more Skywalker.
There's going to be more stories with her.
So
you
have to start questioning. Like if you watch that set of 9 movies, you have to start questioning like why would they feel that section of the story was so significant that they have to talk about it thousands of years later in galaxies that had nothing to do with that even happening. Like we're so far removed from it. Why would we be talking about it? Do you know what I mean? Like if you look at it from a historical perspective, you're supposed to think that this happened galaxies away. So it could be like 20 galaxies beyond where we are. You know what I mean? And thousands of years ago. So someone told this story over and over again and traveled from galaxy to galaxy till we finally get this story. But my question is why? Why is the Skywalker so important? We've never seen why they're so important. And all this stuff they're adding
balance
onto it,
to the Force.
All this stuff they're adding onto it doesn't show the why. Do you know what I mean? Like seeing the Mandalorians. But seeing the Mandalorians get their planet back and watching Thrawn get defeated helping to defeat some other thing. That's what I'm saying. Like, I can agree with what Eric's talking about. This doesn't bolster the Skywalker story at all. It has nothing to do with it. You know?
Having nothing to do with it is a bit of a stretch. But, John, I hope you're not arguing that since it doesn't like directly influence a lot of the core events of bringing balance to the Force and the Skywalker saga, that there's no point in telling these stories. And we're like, no, we're done with Star Wars. No more Star Wars, guys.
No. I mean, like, I'm just trying to go the other side. Like, I'm trying to say, like, because I think more Star Wars the better. You know that from me.
Okay.
Because I want one. Right. I want an episode every single.
Everyone, let's be clear on that.
I want an episode every single week. I want an episode every week. I don't ever want to stop watching Star Wars. I want new Star Wars every single week for me to watch. But all I'm trying to say is, I think I understand what Rick's coming from in that Ahsoka doesn't matter to the Skywalker saga. These Mandalorians don't matter to the Skywalker saga.
No.
So you have to start questioning, like, we still need to see, we still have not seen, the sequels didn't do it. We still need to see, why are the Skywalkers so important? Why was the Skywalker saga something that's so important that people are talking about it thousands of years later, galaxies away from where it happened?
Good point. That's a good point. What I mean? So, like, the Star Wars world as we know it revolves around the Skywalker family.
Skywalker family.
There might be another family that's like, you know, the Super John family that's way more important, but I mean, they didn't write that story.
Yeah.
You know, George wrote the story of, you know, of Luke and his dad.
Because like it's kind of like if you go back in,
he did, because
if you go back in our mythology
that just branch off it, right? Like
Yeah.
I
Like if you go back in our
the
mythology,
Mandoverse
people
era.
talk about Hercules, and they talk about like I said, the Battle of Troy, and you have a context as to why we're still talking about those stories thousands of years later after they happened.
But the difference that's real.
Like, well, I'm saying
that's
like,
based on
well, what I'm
actual
trying to say
history
is, if
and
you
not,
look
like,
at Star
space
Wars,
fantasy, right?
if you look at Star Wars as something that could be real, like let's pretend that there is a galaxy way out there, far away, where this actually did happen. You know what I mean? Like if you look at it from that perspective, it's like,
But they're influencing like main like
King Arthur,
huge storylines and like whatnot. But it's a bigger galaxy, right? Like the Skywalker saga doesn't influence everyone's lives on a daily basis, right?
Apparently it does. That's why they're still talking about it thousands of years later. It's like why we still talk about King Arthur. You know what I mean? In the Round Table.
No. But
it
like
has an influence on our. It has an influence on our democracy.
It's one of the most like
the way we
one of the most memorable.
Society.
One of the most memorable. But all these other stories are important because it just builds out that world and that galaxy a bit more, right? Like there are other things that come into play. Like it's not like Luke Skywalker and Leia can't solve all of the galaxy's problems, right? They just can't.
Imagine
there are other things
if they
going on.
Hooked up, wouldn't we'd all be fucked? If he actually banged her, like in Empire.
Are we talking about incest now?
Yeah, but I mean, when George wrote Star Wars, Empire and Return of the Jedi weren't written. Like, it says they were. They obviously they weren't, or he wouldn't have them making out multiple occasions.
Can I maybe take this as an opportunity to pivot back to the season finale of
Absolutely,
Mando?
Please.
Okay, the Darksaber. Okay, Gideon or whatever version of Gideon, if you will, crushed it in Bo-Katan's hands. Her hand has to be broken.
Oh, she was in pain. You could tell she was like. Oh.
But my question is, do you think it's more likely that is like used as a bit of symbolism for the end of the era of the importance of the Darksaber to the Mandalorian culture, or do you think someone reforges it, or like whether it's Bo-Katan or Grogu takes the Kyber crystal and makes his own mini-sized lightsaber?
Yeah.
Well, I think if they don't rebuild it in some way, then that episode and that scene is just Filoni going up, or Favreau going up to Filoni and going, with your shit, enough with your cartoon crap. Because that's
Favreau was the first wielder.
That is no difference than just slapping Filoni in the face. Like,
Favreau was the first wielder of the Darksaber in the Clone Wars.
No, but Filoni invented that prop, right? And
him and George Lucas,
he invented them.
Well, George Lucas
didn't invent no Darksaber. There was
he did.
He did. He had the story around before.
What cartoon that Dave Filoni created did George
Lucas created the Clone Wars?
George Lucas did the Clone Wars. Yeah.
George
Filoni
Lucas was his employer when Dave Filoni created that cartoon, and he approved
Filoni didn't take over until like the third or fourth season.
No, but Filoni wrote every word of all the animation that Star Wars.
Not till the third or fourth season. No, the first couple seasons it was George.
I will go to court with you on that.
And it was still George creating
none of the Clone Wars.
Well, I'm not sure about writing, but
that's why I'm saying that. But George Lucas was not a writer.
Story arcs and whatnot. Okay. In any case,
I think it will be back for sure, because
as is, or
what a waste.
They'll build a new one. They'll take the Kyber crystal and build a new one.
Who for Grogu, or you think Bo-Katan's taking it back?
I don't know.
I like Bo-Katan as just a female kick-ass character because they got rid of the other kick-ass female character they had. They canceled her and fired her. So this is kind of like Cara Dune's replacement as a cool kick-ass female character. Otherwise, I don't like her character. She adds nothing, much like Ahsoka, to the Star Wars story. She's not Din Djarin's lover. You know, I don't know. She's just another character that Filoni created that a whole bunch of female fans in their 20s and 30s love. And I
her.
get it. I get it. I totally get it. It wasn't made, her character wasn't made for me. It was made
I
for
like
a
it.
younger generation
I've always
whose
liked the
cartoons
whole.
are their first Star Wars love, and they know Bo-Katan and Ahsoka before they know R2D2 and Darth Vader and Chewbacca. Like that's, you could ask a lot of these people that grew up with Ahsoka and Bo-Katan, they might not even know who R2D2 and Chewbacca are. Sadly, it's the reality of the modern universe.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
I would like to see that Darksaber end up, somehow that Din Grogu gets that and makes. But we already know he's got a green lightsaber waiting for him somewhere. So
I'm trying to understand.
Kind of a moot point to give.
I'm trying to understand. Then is Din, well,
now it's his clan name,
right? So is Jaren his? Like Din Djarin is Jaren his real name, and Din was his like master's clan name. But that kind of logic doesn't you don't see any of that anywhere else.
He doesn't. He doesn't have a. I think they just started a clan and they gave him one of the names.
I figured out the naming and why we're all.
Bo-Katan is a priest, and
Grogu,
right? Bo-Katan Kryze is clan Kryze.
Is his first name.
Yeah.
Sabine Wren, clan Wren.
Rick is my first name. She asked him, family permission, you gotta sign this permission slip to go on a field trip or whatever. And he's like, that'll be too hard. I'll never find his family. So then she's like, okay, so we don't know Grogu's surname, his last name. So all we can do is, until we know his last name, because Grogu's song hasn't been written yet. That's going to come up again. His song hasn't been written yet. So it moves to the front of his name. It's Din Grogu. So that to me means that Din Djarin is the same thing, because we don't know his family surname. He just told the Death Watch Mando who rescued him that his name is Djarin or something like that.
We don't know.
We will later find out, explain to us why that name was done the way it was done.
Yeah.
That's silly, but they'll tell us in 2 years why.
Yeah, it's minor stuff. It just didn't make sense right now with the kind of logic that they had.
Yeah, the last second of the episode.
It should have been if he should have been Grogu Djarin is what you're kind of getting at.
Yeah.
If Din is his first name and Djarin is his last, it would have been, because Bo-Katan Kryze, in pre-Vizsla and past Vizsla, Vizsla's their last name, and Vizsla's their clan. So
exactly,
Sabine Wren is her clan.
Does she have a name? She's the armorer. So is her first name Hulk and the Rock?
Well, I have a feeling
people on the planet whose is their first name, and that's the Rock, the armorer.
I still think the armorer is. I still kind of think that the armorer is supposed to be someone we're supposed to know. The only problem I have with it is. The only problem I have with it is if you look at the actress who's playing her, I was looking at her during Celebration when she was on the stage, and I was going, she doesn't look or remind me of anyone that we would know in Star Wars already. So I'm not sure who, unless when they do finally take her helmet off, it's not going to be that actress under the helmet.
Would suck if they did that.
I know it would.
The actress from not Emily Swallow, because I'm an Emily Swallow fan.
Yeah.
But one thing about her,
or I guess British, they could color her hair and alter her face.
Well, people want to. The predominant theory is that she's Rook cast, but
Rook cast.
That's the character that a lot of people say from the animation, right? Because she was a Maul loyalist, and
who was Rook?
It's that storyline.
CAST or KAST?
Short, dark-haired.
ROOK. KAST, Rook.
The same person.
Oh yeah, that girl. So they would just color her hair.
That drew Omega's sister in the Bad Batch.
Yeah,
they're the same design and haircut, and not the same.
So they would just cut her hair and color her hair. That could be her.
Because Rookcast had a little bit of an accent, right? I've seen people compare the Rookcast animation character's voice to how we hear Emily Swallow's armor voice. and they're not like an Australian and a Canadian accent. Like they are very similar, and it could very well be such a thing. And I would be okay with that. I wouldn't complain that she is one of these characters because it does make some sense. It makes so much sense that why not make Jack Black one of those characters? Just because they just threw him in like without any lube. It's just like, here, let's just shove this up your ass and you're gonna like it.
You know what? Speaking of Canadians, Rick, I'm really excited because it sounds like the next time we see Mandalorian and Grogu or Din Djarin and Din Grogu will be in a capacity where it's like they're taking kind of missions from Carson Teva. So it seems like with this kind of rebooted plot line from them, they're going to be doing like independent contractor work, like bounty hunting work on like a case by case basis, and Carson Teva is going to be the proxy for what Grief Cargo was in season 1. So it seems like
Carson's a great character.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not just going to say he's an outright comedic performance in the show, he just brings that little bit of fun to it. Like he's a good actor, but I know him from only funny comedy stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so as soon as I see him on the screen, I'm like, oh, this should be fun. This will be cool, whatever it is. He's not going to get out and have a blaster fight with somebody. But I mean, yeah, absolutely, man. And just kind of neat to see, Filoni and Fujiyama and, any of the other directors and producers hanging out there
he was sitting at the bar.
Miami Cantina bar looking place.
Filoni and one of the other directors from
they were just sitting at the bar, But I actually think that's a cool idea. I loved it when I saw that. What is his name? Paul Sung Lee or something like that.
Paul Sung Hyun Lee, yeah.
And he was giving them. He said, "Let me take care of." And they said like remnants of the Empire. He said that he would send him after. So I actually wondered if he'd have to go after some of those guys we saw in the council.
Well, here's what was weird about that too. So he's at the end of it. Mando shows up to that Miami space bar again, and Carson Teva basically knew he was coming, and before Mando even said anything, they're like, "Oh, it looks like you killed Moff Gideon or whatever." Like he knew everything. Like I don't. So is he getting that information from R5D4? Like just sending weekly faxes and updates?
Could be
Carson Teva, because when they don't explain little things like that to us, we're just left to create our own story. That won't change the universe how it works, but Carson Teva knew that Mando had done some stuff and either killed or stopped Moff Gideon from doing whatever he was doing, and brought up Imperial remnants and whatnot, right? So there is stories there that they're only giving us here's a little bit that we could have put in that Rangers the New Republic show that got canceled, but here's that little bit anyway.
Back, right?
Well, I think this is how they're repurposing that storyline.
I think there might have been a couple extra little points that they just came back and let's take away those dialogue because we're not doing that show anymore. I don't think they because like what we saw with the Obi-Wan show turning from a movie into a show and the Boba Fett movie turning into a show, I don't think they completely throw away any of these ideas. If we saw something that was listed as a movie or a show and they canceled it, I think the ideas and the stories they had, if they've written anything or any of that stuff or fleshed out outlines or whatever, they still have that stuff in the story group and they're picking from it. They're going, well, we were going to use this for that, but why don't we? It actually works right here. Why don't we fit it in here and do this? And and because now they're doing a second season of the Star Wars Visions, so that's just a compilation of a bunch of different people telling some stories.
It's not even on the timeline. Like I was looking at the Disney Plus. I was looking at the Disney Plus timeline. Like it says timeline order, and I was going through looking at all the shows. And even some of the Lego shows are on the timeline order, but the Visions is not.
Oh, I see.
So I was like, oh wow. So they don't consider, and I was like, in some of the Lego they don't consider canon, but some of the Lego they do. And then the Visions is not canon because that's not on the timeline.
Yeah.
And the other thing I noticed was the movie of the Clone Wars was not on the timeline.
It should
The
be.
Clone Wars 8 seasons or whatever is on the timeline, but not the movie itself.
I wonder if they
going,
just abbreviated that and showed
think
just
the
like
movie
all the Clone Wars.
Does retell some of the Dave
with
Filoni
Stinky,
animation.
with Stinky,
Like,
the
some
baby,
of that story
the baby
Dave
Hutt.
Filoni retold. Not the dirge part, not some of the characters, but yeah, I kind of
No. I'm talking about the movie with Stinky, with the baby Jabba the Hutt.
Oh, that wasn't Tarkovsky style, though.
No, not that. Not that.
No, because you're right. The Tarkovsky one is not on there also, because that's considered, what is it, Vintage Legends or something they have it written
I
down
guess
as?
in a way.
Because the Ewoks and Droids
point was
cartoons
for
are not on there
Legends
either.
having, 6 or 8 little, 8 to 15-minute little shows. I'm just, can you imagine, and what would you think of in the live action of Star Wars? They did say drop a little, because we're getting 30-minute episodes, 35, and that's like, like Seinfeld episodes are freaking longer, right? What if they were able to do a little 15 minutes here and there that just adds to like the Ahsoka story, or adds to
that's what I've been saying all along.
Instead of
like,
squeezing it in an episode, where Pershing's getting his mind fried, maybe just one Sunday at noon. You just drop a little 15.
That's also my part of the weekly thing,
because it can be made any time of the year.
That's also part of my weekly. That's also part of my weekly Star Wars thing, because we're streaming. Okay, there is absolutely no reason now that we are in a streaming universe. We're not watching stuff on television. There's no reason to adhere to the half-hour schedule, the 40-minute schedule, the 1-hour schedule, the hour and 20-minute schedule. A show could be 5 minutes long. A show could be 10 minutes long. A show could be 63 minutes long. Who gives a crap?
That's what Marvel's doing, right? Yeah. They did with Werewolf by Night and the Guardians Holiday Special. They're just like one-off, like
hour-long
things. Those were actually really fun, and I'm surprised we don't see more of that on all networks. Whether Fox,
so that's what I'm saying. Like with Star Wars, they could give you, like, who cares? Yeah, give me a 10-minute thing that just fills in this little gap. At least I have one thing to watch every week and talk about. You know what I mean?
And something I liked about all of Dave Filoni's animation, Clone Wars, I think even Rebels and the Bad Batch, maybe not the Bad Batch as much, but all the other ones, at the beginning, kind of like the old Flash Gordon serials of the 50s and 60s, there's the announcer guy that's like, and now, happening on this, like, that was fun.
That was cool. I like that.
It was that little bit of dialogue. It explains something without you actually seeing the battle happen. Like, there might have been some battling happening, but it's like, Anakin and Obi-Wan are on the planet of Boku. This is happening. And
I always liked that. It made it fun.
They explained it to us, so we kind of knew, okay, so they're officially on this planet. We now confirmed that whatever he said happened. And Mandoverse, it kind of almost, like, it, in a way, it almost revisited that. And I kind of thought maybe at one point we would get that little dialogue, but instead we got like a little flashback. Like, here's a little recap of what you missed, or what we already showed in Mando, what we wanted to focus on for this episode. So I do really like that serial based, fantasy show that, George maybe always wanted and, wasn't able to, present it that way because it was theatrical release. But yeah, it would be neat to see. I'm a fan of shorts, I guess, if that's the word we're going to use for these little one-off and in-betweens. Because with these Star Wars stories, like, again, with the Thrawn trilogy of books, like, it wasn't just one book and you read it and it was the Shadows of the Empire. It was 3 little books, and each of those 3 books, as books work, have all chapters and breakdowns and little stories happen. And that's why I like the Mandoverse, and maybe they retitle it just Mandoverse, and they pop in a Boba Fett story and a Mando story and a young Ahsoka story, like Filoni did with his little baby Ahsoka 10-minute episode. Like, it wasn't my favorite thing, but I get it. Like, it's a story you can tell. It adds lore to the lore. Like it just adds something. And at the same time, you can market the F out of it by making baby Hammerhead dolls or baby Soka dolls or whatever your pleasure is. And no one's gonna. I don't think anyone hated those little cartoons. Like they were. Some people said it was the best shit they ever saw. Like, and I'm like, well, I wouldn't go that far. It was just cool to have, and they don't have to spend $100 million to make it.
Yeah.
But I thought they were fun, and I hope they can do more of that.
The other thing too is
thinking they could just pump that shit out weekly.
The other thing too is like they could even do what speaking of what Marvel's doing, like I love how once in a while I get 2 or 3 drops in the Marvel Legends thing where I get a background about the character. Have you seen those?
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember what they're called, but
they should do that in Star Wars too. Like just throw together these little narrated background things that we get about a character, because I think those Marvel ones are cool, and I love how they just randomly drop one every once in a while. Where there's a new one about Ant-Man. Oh, there's a cool one about the Hulk. Oh, look,
I watched Quantumania.
There's one about Spider-Man.
I watched Quantumania last week after Mando. Like I think I watched it the next day, and I was entertained. I'm not gonna lie, it was way better than. I think it was better than Black Panther and Eternals combined. But my point is, the first 5 minutes of Quantumania, there was more freaking Star Wars aliens than I've seen since 2012. Like I swear there's 50 to 100 really cool. Like there's Broccoli Head. Like they actually made Broccoli Head like a character, and these look like actual costumes in some cases. And not it was pretty fun with these creatures in Quantumania, because I was like, that's what I've been missing in Star Wars.
Mando did a good job with bringing in creatures and aliens.
It should be 50% creatures or more, 90% creatures, unless they're on Earth or wherever the most human planet is. But yeah, that's me being picky. I loved this season. I thought it was just missing a couple of answers, like. How many people were rumoring last week? Oh, who's the second spy? Why does the armor? She's horny. Moff Gideon's horny. Well, like maybe they're just horny, man. Like horns are cool. Just like if you have an old Corvette, if you have chrome on it, it doesn't mean you like to suck the chrome off of things. It just means chrome is cool. We didn't get answers to that stuff, but
one of the
90% of all the theories were like. Oh, that's that, and that's fun. I enjoyed that.
So, back to episode 7's title being the spies. I'll have to explain the leg holder thing another day for those who
didn't hear about that golfer. I won golf today. Eric watched it. I won golf today. I was the winner.
Bob is going on 0 hours sleep.
I know. Yeah.
Because I saw him in a stream late last night, and I'm like, what the hell? It's like 4 a.m. there.
But the episode 7 title being the spies, I think we all kind of left that thinking, well, like the only real spy that you saw was Elia Kane, right? Talking to Moff Gideon, right? What were they calling them?
Well, she's TK, 8472. Like
no, I know the New Republic had. She was part of the New Republic amnesty program.
Yeah,
right? I'm gonna be right back.
Right.
Be right back.
Yep.
All right. So she was the only spy that we saw, but it was plural spies, and that episode made us think like, who's going to betray, like.
Oh yeah,
Din, right? Grogu, and Bo-Katan, right? Is it the armor? Is it Axe Woves? Is it whoever, right? Like we don't know what's going on,
and until it was revealed, I still kind of thought
nobody.
My God, it's going to be Axe Woves. Axe Woves is going to go on that ship and he's going to start shooting people. And I was watching it like, okay, what's going on?
We were all waiting for it to happen.
What's going to happen?
That didn't get paid off.
So I was like, okay, cool.
I think, to me, I think that was just a bad name for episode 7.
Maybe the people who did the credits in China, they didn't translate it properly, and I'm pretty sure that's not it.
No, to me, I think it was either like it was an it was either intentional misdirection from
that's
the storytellers being like,
if we go back and look now, do you think they changed the name of that episode?
Oh, probably not.
Kind of like they erased Gene Guy. 2 days later, Gene Guy was erased, right?
Yeah, probably not in that case. It was either like big misdirection or they just picked a dumb name for the episode, right?
Because this episode, when I refreshed like at 11:55 to see if it was live, and then I just scroll to the right to the newest episode, and it didn't say the name of the episode. Like
it doesn't say it immediately.
No,
none of them did
until you see it. So I was happily, impressed. I guess not impressed, but surprised to not know the title before going into it. So yeah, in a way, it's a way of a spoiler, and maybe they shouldn't name that episode until after.
Yeah, well, I have no problem with them naming it. It was, to me, it was either just a bad name or intentional kind of misdirection to get us thinking like someone was going to betray.
I don't even care. I thought it was fine.
No, I know, but like it was such a big point where like I'm sitting on the edge of my seat through the finale, waiting for someone to double cross, and that just
I was too. I was led to believe like, okay, fuck it, it's going to be this Axe guy. He's number one on my list of pussies because a girl beat him up, and fuck that guy. He's just getting beat up by a damn girl, right? So he could get killed off. No one cares. And then they introduced this, the Mandalorian fleet commander guy, right? The dark skinned guy who's, they showed him a couple times throughout the past episodes, and now he's got a little bit of dialogue, and he was leaked on a Lego set. So I'm like,
and Black Series.
Do you understand?
Or Star Wars.
Speaking of that, do you get why he had them all leave? Like, I thought because he was like, no, you guys all have to get out because I'm going to crash the ship into the planet. And then he like turns the ship towards the planet, breaks the window, and jumps out and flies away. It's like, well, couldn't the rest of them have done that? They all could have broke the window, jumped out, and flew away.
I honestly think that they changed something there. I think maybe he was meant to be some kind of betrayal. I don't know. Or
he was going to die.
It didn't seem like it to me.
Even when that last guy was leaving, the black guy was leaving, he's like, okay, I got this. And he's leaving. He turned around like really, dude? Like, so you're going to stay here. And I just thought something was meant to happen there. And they just went to the next scene. They didn't continue any dialogue or...
I'm not going to overthink that one. To me, like, could Axe Woves in theory just radioed up and said like, hey, everyone else bail, but someone go crash into this location and do what Axe did. But also consider like Axe is an established character and he's going to get more lines and screen time than
and he did. And Sasha Banks had a couple of lines too, which was cool because she's been in maybe 3 episodes this season, just standing there.
But
looking badass because she's a very attractive, badass woman, and I want to see her kick ass. And we finally get to see her do some ass kicking in this episode, which is great.
And she used those knee rockets.
Yes,
yeah.
So I saw a lot of knee rockets being used, and even Moff Gideon, I think, was about to fire some darts out of his knees because he does have them, but he used the wrist gauntlets multiple times, like firing and flamethrowers and everything he had. And I'm like, man, there's some battles going on.
And the rope was a lot. The rope,
Bo-Katan kept being the character that was saving Din Djarin or coming in and helping some other Mandos. Why couldn't that have been the armor once or twice coming in and
or
doing
like all of them? It would have been.
It would have been people with hammers and tongs and.
Well, you see Grogu come in and do a knee slide there too. That was funny. So, but I'm with you. It probably would have been like a lot more interesting if like Mando and Grogu were fighting Moff Gideon, Bo-Katan came in, and then it would have been cool if at least the armorer came in to help, and they were all tag teaming against.
Because nobody really did. It was down to the 3 of them, and the rest of the Mandos were led to believe are in the air, flying Mando or flying stormtrooper guys, and we did see a great aerial battle. Like that was cool.
That was really cool.
That was right out of the cartoons. Like I could see, all the
Clone
Clone
season
Wars
7, yeah.
cartoons with the Mandos flying, and some
Yeah.
of the greatest cartoon episodes that Filoni's made. And a part of it was the cool fighting and not violence, but the action, that fighting action that we got to see in live action, and which is cool, man. And the coolest part to me was the armor swinging tongs and her hammer, up in the chin, and
that was so badass compared to like if they gave her a blaster. It just looked so much cooler that she was using.
And she did have a big flame throwing looking gun in the after credits art.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, it would have been cool if she did.
She did have a blaster.
No, it was cool. It was cooler that they abandoned that and they just kept her with the hammer and tongs.
No, didn't she have a blaster when she first flew in?
She had a hammer and one and tongs and the other.
Was it just her wrist? Because she went doo and then landed and pulled out the weapon.
Fire some wrists.
Maybe she had
instead of wrist fire,
wrist
it was
launchers.
a wrist. Okay, because she lands and goes like choo and then like pulls out her weapons. And it's like
she is. Except for Din Djarin, the Mando. Of course, he's my favorite character in the Mando series. But she's next. Like I really like the armor character. Her voice is it's sexy. It's mysterious. She's meant to be like the old, not grandma or mom, but she's the leader figure. And I just didn't like her handing all this leader duties over to this Bo-Katan character. I'm okay with it. I just would have liked to see her step up a little more and play.
Well, you don't know what's going to happen in the future.
To have, of course, she seemed to demand the respect, and she got the respect, whether it's from Bo-Katan, Din Djarin. Like we saw Din Djarin say to Bo-Katan, like, you have my loyalty and my armor and my gun are for you. He never said that to the armor, but yet he did everything she ever told him. So I was like, and Bo-Katan did everything that the armor told her, like, come in here, take your helmet off, go on your knee, blow me. Like everyone did what she said, but yet she's not the leader of the Mando. So,
well, that's the thing. We don't know
the crown.
That's the thing. Because
look at those little horns, just pretend it's a crown. She's the Queen Mando.
Did Ursa Wren die? Did we see her die?
I don't think so.
Because that's kind of what I was wondering about. Because if Sabine Wren's mom is still alive,
she's a cartoon character.
If Sabine Wren's mom is still alive and she's the armor, then it makes sense why. Because she was a ruling class woman in the film or in the show, so it would make sense why everyone is following her. That's why I'm saying we don't know who the armorer is. Like is Rook wasn't Rook just a regular fighter?
She was a member of Death Watch that went to,
but she wasn't like a leader, right?
She was like a lieutenant.
She wasn't related to Bo
but she wasn't a leader like Gar Saxon or anything.
She was like their she was their right hand man for the Mandalorians.
They just kind of split up. Like some of them were we're going to remain good, if that's the word, good and bad. And then her and the Gar Saxon, they decided to side with Darth Maul, which we'll call them bad.
Because that's kind of what Ghost is saying. Like Bo got the respect because she's part of the ruling class of the planet.
Yeah, no, that's the point.
But what I mean is
that point because
on the other side, why do everybody follow the armorer? Is because we don't know who the armorer is yet. That's why I keep saying I expect when they take the helmet off and they finally say something like her name, we're all going to go, oh my gosh, it's so and so. And I would almost expect it to be someone in a ruling status like Sabine Wren's mom. She had her own throne room. You know what I mean? Like when they walked in to see Sabine's mom, she had a throne room with guards. You know what I mean? Like so.
Bo-Katan had a throne room too.
But
here's a couple things from this.
What I mean is Rook doesn't have that. Rook was just some warrior. You know what I mean?
Bo-Katan lived on Mandalore by herself, sitting in a chair.
Well, she lived on. Oh yeah, in that.
Yeah, and she didn't know
in Mando.
There's hundreds of other Mandos out there in pirate ships. she didn't know.
Well, she
that
knew
there
about
were
them. She's trying to
dozens
say
and
they
dozens
abandoned
and
her.
dozens of TIE fighters and Moff Gideons and flying white. Like, I don't know. How did she not know? And yet she lived there by herself.
She wasn't on Mandalore when he found her, was she?
Yeah, Din Djarin went there, and she's just sitting there lounging on a chair.
Because
There's
he
no one
leaves
here.
that
It's
place.
just me.
He leaves that
Here,
place
she
and
said.
goes to Mandalore.
That wasn't Mandalore. That was a planet in the Mandalore system where Bo-Katan's clan Krees had their castle and plant like
Oh, see, I
stronghold.
totally.
Because he left that planet to go to Mandalore.
And I think 99% of all the other fandoms believe that was Mandalore.
No, because they said it wasn't.
And now I
when
got
they
to go back
landed
and
there.
rewatch that
I
because
think they even put up a name of the planet as
yeah,
he
I
was
think they
landing.
did. It said Mandalore.
No,
Because it showed the bubble.
It's in the system, but it's not the planet Mandalore.
Okay, now I'm wondering more. Now,
but someone
I have to rethink
earlier
why she exists at all. Then
someone earlier said something about Grogu having no story arc, and I was going to say I think that is a result of. I almost wonder if they didn't think Grogu would be in it more than that first season, and it turned into something more, because it is a big problem. I think, at least from my perspective, it's a big problem, and I think as a writer, I would have issue with Grogu because, and more as it goes along, because
was it a forest
if
moon?
Grogu is
the planet's called Kalevala. They did mention it in the series.
Okay,
I just couldn't remember it.
If Grogu is 50 years old, I look at it like Yoda was 900 when he died, and he was an old man with gray hair. So 900 years old equals 90 years old for us. So in human years, 90 years is 900 in Yoda years, okay? So by that aspect, you take away a zero. 900 / a zero, you get 90. So if he's 50, so if he's 50 years old, and if Grogu is 50, take away the zero, that means in human years, Grogu's 5. So, but in order for Grogu to turn 6 years old, it's going to take 10 years. So he's going to have to be 60, which is going to take 10 years for him to be 6. So by the time he's 100 years old, he's a 10-year-old child. Well, they already said before that Yoda started teaching when he was 100 years old, and he taught from 100 to 800. So somewhere in the next 50 years, Grogu has to mature from a baby to being able to train Jedi Knights.
He'll be
you know
dead.
what I mean? So he becomes.
He will be dead.
So if Yoda was training Jedi Knights at 100 years old, he was probably a master then.
I don't think Grogu will ever be training anybody.
No, but what I'm getting at is they screwed up when they made Grogu, because if he's 50 years old, he should have been more mature than
don't overthink it. Don't overthink it.
Than just Goo Goo Gaga.
Money right now.
Don't overthink it, John. Don't overthink it.
So now you're stuck with this little baby that's Goo Goo Gaga, and you're like, but somehow in the next 50 years, he's supposed to turn from Goo Goo Gaga to have the cognitive ability to be like a Jedi master?
This is an alien species in a space wizard movie. You don't know how they mature.
That we'll ever see Grogu again.
It's not linear. It could be like
he just suddenly gets old. Yeah.
We don't know we'll ever see Grogu again outside of the Mandoverse. So I'm assuming we'll see him again in Ahsoka series, because they're still part of the same timeline for at least 4 of the episodes. So what I know about the Ahsoka series is, I don't know if it's confirmed, but it sounds like 4 episodes are flashback and 4 episodes are current Mandoverse timeline that we know of Ahsoka and Luke and Grogu and Boba Fett and all those skeleton crew and whatnot. So I hope that there's a little more of a tie-in, like Mandoverse introduced us to Boba Fett's show, as well as Ahsoka to becoming her show. We haven't been introduced to the skeleton crew in any way, except for Apollo Creed mentioned the school, and those pirates were in this season. So other than that, because we still haven't seen the damn trailer, they haven't showed it to us because we were at Celebration.
I have potato footage of it on my phone.
It has a baby freaking Max Rebo in it, and that's
Yep.
to me.
He's
That's
one of the main characters.
I hope that baby Max Rebo eats Grogu because he's so much cooler and cuter. He's not going to eat him, but yeah, I don't. Chris is talking about Rey movie and stuff like that. I don't think there is a Grogu in no Rey movie because there was no Grogu in any of the Star Wars anything after the Mandoverse. So if he's
Disney
so
would
mighty and powerful, he would be talked about and alive.
Disney would be silly to kill Grogu. They will not let Lucasfilm kill Grogu. I promise
I think
you
it'd
that.
be silly to have Grogu not as a baby.
Grogu is a
Don't
license
find-
to print money.
Old man bearded Grogu merch. As cool as that might be, it's the merch part is over for Grogu. So like your baby that you just had, when she's 3 years old, there won't be Grogu merchandise in the shelves. I guarantee you that.
I'm looking forward to
the last 30 years like Scooby-Doo does.
I'm looking forward to the Young Jedi Adventures merch because I want to get all things Nubs. Nubs looks cool as shit.
That's the little blue one, right? The
The
little
blue, yeah, it's a blue. It's a new species called a Pooba.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much room to introduce newer, not cuter, but other cute little creatures if that's what you want for marketing purposes. We're gonna see a Wookiee lightsaber wielding Jedi, right, in live action. That's cool. Like, who doesn't want to see a Wookiee swinging around a freaking laser sword? Like, he has a man bun. That's kind of gay, but I don't know. Like, other than that, we know it's Jonas, the same actor who portrayed Solo's Wookiee or Chewbacca. So yeah, I'm all for that. I don't care if it's New Republic, Old Republic, all female Republic. I don't care, man. If they're gonna have a Wookiee in there, freaking swinging swords, and a little baby Max Rebo being cute, and maybe being also a sword swinging Jedi, like I'm all for it, man. Like more cuteness, like mouse
droid.
Isn't that
the Acolyte?
Those mouse droids are the
one has
thing in all of Star Wars in 2023.
The Acolyte,
and they're just little lunchbox looking things. But that was awesome, man. Like, people might not have liked that, but a mouse droid bumping into R5D4 and turning on his little sirens. Oh, I'm going to get taken
more mouse droids.
And then you think it's going to come back with a bunch of stormtroopers, but no, it comes back with like 11 other mouse droids. And then all just like beep, 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 whew, whew. They can't do nothing.
One of them falls off the cliff.
Classic,
yeah,
man.
There are two things I want to get opinions on. One, real quick, how cool was it to see the interceptors, like the way they were docked and just swooping in? It was kind of like bats.
Yeah,
like
just dropping and going, right?
Yeah, and then I know me bringing up here, I'm not the first person to bring it up online, but when I was watching the finale in real time, as it dropped, that end scene, or one scene when the cruiser came in and maybe killed Moff Gideon, maybe it didn't, but Grogu had that force shield, right? I totally got, and I know I'm not the first to bring this up, I totally got Groot vibes from the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, for sure. Groot kind of not killed himself because he didn't really die, right? But sacrificed himself in a way and became a big bush.
It was more than just the obvious creating like a big bubble shield. It was just the feeling of it, like the
Kanan did that before Guardians of the Galaxy movies came out, though, right? So Groot took it from Filoni in a way. If that was written by James Gunn, James Gunn was obviously influenced by Dave Filoni's cartoons, because that's, unless there's other movies or shows.
When did that episode come out?
Speaking of which, I have not liked Groot since the first movie, and I'm really disappointed to see in this new movie he's not back to being Groot yet. He's still a terrible looking, horrid looking.
No, he's a buff. He's a dude in a costume. Believe it or not, I think half the movie it's actually a guy in a suit.
Oh, really?
And whatever he does is, super stretch Armstrong stuff.
Like the Groot in the first movie looks cool. The Groot in the first movie looks awesome. He looks badass. He looks cool. And then in the second one, I can get why he was a baby, But this teenager Groot thing, I think they should have skipped it and just went, he's old again. He's back to the way he was in the first movie. Because they just look so bad. He
is very
different. It
He is
ruins
very
it. It's
different
terrible.
in each of the movies, but
And that action figure,
I
saw it
in James Gunn and any kind of entertainment property he makes. The Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my favorite Marvel things ever.
And it shouldn't.
And I've
right?
liked Hulk and stuff for my whole life. Like I've been a Hulk fanatic. So Hulk is number one. But after that, man, the Guardians of the Galaxy, that universe, that very funny, expensive science fiction is fucking badass, man. And he also made Peacemaker, which was also badass.
Yeah, that was good.
And now he's making Superman. And you name it. How many people are currently right now? He's like the head of DC Comics universe, the cinematic.
I like the giant
with
star
a partner.
I thought it was great.
And he has a movie that comes out for Marvel in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like this dude is getting paid from two of the biggest properties
companies
in the world.
I wish he'd make Star Wars.
I would not.
Well, I think now that he's on DC, he can't do anything else.
Oh no, he's 100% on DC.
He can do whatever he wants. I think at this point he can approach any license and say, "Would you like me to do this?" And they will.
What I'm getting at is I don't think that Disney would cross with Warner Brothers.
Okay,
it's not Disney. It's probably more likely his contract with Warner Brothers being like the co-head of DC.
Because you notice
Peter Safran.
You do notice that none of those DC actors who were in the Justice League are signed on to do any Star Wars films, even though they would love to do it. They're dying to do it. You know,
I don't want recognizable people in my Star Wars films or anymore.
Or Marvel films, even.
Hold on.
They're not even in Marvel.
Unless it's Tom Green wearing a hammerhead mask or something.
But then you wouldn't get
a famous fucking celebrity in.
But then you wouldn't get
action. Like if I go on Star Wars, at least I look like a freak, but I'm not well known as Jack Black.
But then you wouldn't get Andy Serkis as Kino Loy or.
I disagree. Andy Serkis is freaking Gollum, and he's a monkey.
No, but you said you don't. No, that's not true. That's not true.
How many acting roles has Andy Serkis been in, and how many has he been nominated for?
He's been in a lot. That's what he's most nominated for. It's what he's most known for, but he does have a bigger acting career than just
for
that.
sure.
But,
I'll give him that, but that's not what he's known for.
Stellan Skarsgård, you wouldn't get Stellan Skarsgård as Luthen in Andor, right? As long as it's right. I've
only ever seen him in Thor as a comedy sidekick character. That's the only thing I've ever seen that actor in my whole life. And I'm older than both of you guys, but I also know he's like more of a British proper actor, and I don't.
Well, he's Swedish.
The BBC, and he could have been Doctor Who for all I know, but I wouldn't know. But that was my kind of shit, my shit kick for this season. Where I love Jablinski, man. Don't get me wrong. I follow him on all the social medias, but when I woke up Wednesday morning and I saw Jablinski posting he was on last night's episode of Mando, I'm like, dude, you fucked up. Once, spoiler alert. And two, maybe you shouldn't have been on it because you pulled me right out of my
I didn't care at all.
Star Wars universe.
You're talking about Jack Black?
Yeah, that was so.
I like Jack Black in it. I love that episode. I don't care what
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't care at all. It was
make that one of those 15 minutes. We'll air this on a Sunday morning thing because it adds nothing to the story.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Just like Christopher Lloyd, I feel sad for Christopher Lloyd. Like I would make a speech at his funeral about this role because I felt so bad for him getting this role. Like
that's a bit dramatic.
Well, come on, dude. I would think I would have less followers on social media if I did a really bad role in a movie or got.
I don't think that was a bad role. I don't think that was
something like it wasn't. It didn't look good for him, man. He looked old and sickly to begin with. Like they didn't make him out as I don't know. It was a poor decision was made by him to accept that role. I think.
It was kind of a throwaway role, I think.
But maybe that's what he wanted. Maybe he didn't want to be tied down for some long series. Maybe he just wanted like a little bit of presence.
Wanted to be in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get that. Everyone's giving people favors and stuff. Like Did you know that David Cho was in The Mandalorian? Do you know was one of those guys in Beef?
Mm.
And he's only in it because he was getting out of a cab and Favreau was getting into a cab. David Cho is basically, he's famous for, he did vandalism inside Facebook's headquarters and they paid him in Facebook shares instead of cash in 1999. Later, he turned those shares into $300 million, and he's now one of the richest people on the planet because he got paid in some Facebook shares. But he's a little bit of a controversial character in his life.
This is the guy he did the graffiti in that season 2 for the first episode. That planet
in Mandalorian
with
so
John
Favreau and him
Leguizamo
kind of hooked up, and because they're in the Hollywood circles, and he told Favreau, he's like, "Hey, you should put some vandalism in Star Wars." And then they got back and forth, and Favreau was like, "Okay, you can do it," and basically gave him a role or gave him a job.
But he did more.
And he's also an alien in the Fight Club scene, UFC Mando scene, where he's just.
But that doesn't hurt. But that doesn't hurt anything.
No, but because no one knew he was in it until last week. He said it on the Joe Rogan podcast. No one knew he was in that show. It was not on StarWars.com.
Well,
it was not on Twitter.
It was known that I didn't recognize. I don't follow the guy, but they did say that guy had a role in the background of that
and that's
episode.
cool. Kind of we found out later that James Bond was in the sequel movies as a clone trooper. Kevin Smith was a voice of an alien in a cantina, but we found that out after. We didn't find out because Kevin Smith came on screen and said,
"Was it Simon Pegg?
Bitches, I'm on Star Wars."
Yeah, Simon Pegg was an alien.
Right? He showed up and said, "Jablinski's here. Let's do a little dance." I'm like, dude, really?
I liked it.
Where was it? They should have called timeout and then intermission. Here's a little funny intermission for Star Wars. But my only thing I didn't dislike that I did dislike this season was that. Andor was awesome, but they had folding lawn chairs. That was bad. I hope next time it was bad, man.
Who cares?
That's no different than a Starbucks coffee in Game of Thrones. It's no fucking different.
And the thing is, I didn't care when the Starbucks coffee was in Game of Thrones either.
No, but they at least erased it, and the next day it wasn't there anymore.
Yeah, but
in Star Wars, they should go back and erase that lawn chair.
What I'm saying is, I don't care if the Starbucks cup stayed in it. Who gives a crap? Who gives a crap? But I don't care if it stays there. It doesn't matter.
Have you guys seen on the Star Wars YouTube channel? They've done those Star Wars lo-fi things.
The new Andor one yesterday.
They did one for Andor on that beach planet or the beach area, Neomos, and the screenshot for it has those chairs.
Yeah, so, I got the notification. I went right to it.
Just
see if they showed lawn chairs. No, I liked it because they showed 3 or 4 aliens, and there was no lawn chairs. They were sitting in some kind of seating thing, but there was no lawn chair in that cartoon that you can go buy at Walmart right now. It was just kind of cool to see. I do like those lo-fi things. I wish it was more reggae vibes, but exactly.
They can have
the chairs don't bother me.
Chair.
They had cool lawn chairs in Mando when they were playing football. They were playing footsie, plastic football. They had cool triangle lawn chairs that you had no idea how they would balance because they had a point on the bottom. But so at least it was sci-fi, like Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers, those shows we grew up with. They didn't bring in a frickin' folding lawn chair. They at least made it look. This is what it might look like in the future, kids. It might be chrome. At least they gave us a little bit of hint of futurism, like Back to the Future 2. Here's what flying cars and skateboards might look like, right?
So why do you think any chairs have legs at all in Star Wars then?
They don't need to because they all hover.
They have repulsor things. They could just have repulsors under every chair and just float. It's a flat thing that floats.
Unless you're really poor.
Yeah.
Then you got to carve your own chair out of
You have to have your own legs.
Santa tusks or something. But yeah, why not hover?
They have stairs. How
land
dare
speeders
they?
hover, speeder
Nails
bikes
and
hover,
screws and bricks.
R5D4s fly now, which is, I guess that's cool.
Force fly now. Astromechs have flown since the prequels.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, but I mean R5D4. Like the first time we knew he could fly, right?
Well,
He
if
could have
R2
flew
could
away
fly,
from those Jawas 45
if R2
years
could
ago.
fly, why would you assume R5
You know,
can't?
you know, was the
They have
coolest.
the same
modified.
exact legs.
R2
They got the
must have been
exact same
modified.
legs.
The coolest part for me about droids that we saw in Mando season 3 was we saw the Carson Teva's astromech deploy the one part of like the one spotter scope part of his like
Oh yeah,
helmet or like
the
head,
thing of his head
and,
came out
and
like
it
a
was
drone.
a separate drone. That was cool.
That was very cool. That was new
Yeah.
too. Like I don't think that's been in a comic or a video game. I could be wrong, but yeah, that
No,
was very cool.
That was the first time I saw something like that. But
And
you got to
Supertron,
figure
there's a new
R2,
Ewok.
things like that.
There's some new Ewoks comics out, and I've kind of saw one sharing a bunch of pages online yesterday. They have the INT4 Kenner mini rig is heavily featured in this latest Ewok comic.
Oh
where
yeah,
like an Ewok is flying around this Kenner mini rig, and yeah,
That's
badass, man. Anytime they bring in a Kenner toy into like, I guess canon. I don't know if all comics are canon now, but yeah, I thought that was freaking cool, man. Well, as much as I would have loved to see that in the Mandoverse, a little Kenner mini rig come flying in, that would have been badass.
yeah, that's right. Chopper's older than those, and he can fly. Yeah.
Oh, Christina, oh, it's dark. So I want to get out here before noon so some other people can do the YouTubes. But if you were to rate this season 3 of Mandoverse out of 10, what would you rate this season? Like, and do you rate it greater or worse than what you've already seen, Mando season 1, Mando season 2? Because
Well,
I'm
to
going to
me,
say
it's all
Mando
the
season
same.
1 was my favorite, then Mando season 2, and now this one. It just follows along. I still think that Andor has raised the bar on anything new they do Star Wars now, and I'm going to compare everything to it because I enjoyed it so much. It had so much more of a budget, I feel personally. It looked like they spent more money on everything, whether it's just a catering truck or the special effects or the Chris mentioned ILM earlier. I think there's three episodes of Mandalorian this year where ILM got the week off. There is no special effects in some of these episodes where it's just Mando walking down a hallway or But then again, Andor kept them employed all year long working on this series just because there's big stages and sets built. And I just think it raised the bar, man. So I really hope the Ahsoka doesn't disappoint me because the only thing I liked about the trailer was the Punisher is in it, and the Punisher is going to be the new bad guy.
Ray Stevenson.
I hope he kills fucking Ahsoka like badly, and with guns and violence.
I don't think Ray Stevenson's character and his apprentice with the, I'm not sure if they're orange or red, whatever lightsabers are necessarily bad. Their last names are Skull and Hati.
Yeah,
and
if they're on a rebel blockade runner killing rebel fleet troopers, they're bad.
Well,
there's no good person that does that.
I'm not sure that might be the case, but that may have just been clever editing for the trailer and whatnot.
Oh yeah, true.
But those names are linked to Norse mythology with wolves. We know Dave Filoni loves wolves. Where else did we see wolves in like the past part of like Dave Filoni's Star Wars career? In Rebels, they were kind of like they were pictured on that like painting, and they helped them get to World Between Worlds and whatnot.
Yeah, isn't there like force sensitive wolves in Star Wars now?
So my guess
and
is
whales and trees.
So those wolves that you saw in Star Wars Rebels, my guess is that the black one and the white, because I want to say there was a black one and a white one. My guess is that those wolves are actually those characters. Ray
Oh,
Stevenson's
okay. I never
character.
thought reincarnated.
So yeah, my guess is that they were like in the world between worlds, and they're
God,
like,
I hope not, dude. I'm sorry. I just hope. I really hope not. I
I
hope
don't know.
they talk
It's a
about the world between worlds, and then they just break it.
Well, you
Like they
see
did
the
to
world
Darksaber.
between worlds in
we
the
broke it.
trailer.
We never see that again. I hope they do that.
Well, you see the world between worlds in the trailer. So
Yeah, I know, but I
there.
hope they take the holocron or whatever and just smash
Break
it
it.
like they did to Darksaber, and then
I-
we can go
it's-
on with.
for me. It may not end up being true, but the link to Norse mythology and Dave Filoni's like affinity towards wolves makes me think that maybe they are those like wolves that we saw. This is funny from Connor.
Yeah.
Force sensitive launchers with lights. They got to have lights.
They need to be knighted. Like Grogu, Sir Grogu was knighted, right?
Yep. Yeah. So
now, do you think, as a Ahsoka lover,
yeah,
I don't mean to call you an Ahsoka lover. It sounds like I'm calling you a bad thing. That's not a bad
I love
thing,
the character.
right?
I don't care.
No, but do you think that you're gonna like, even though it hasn't been made, or you don't, all you've seen is a 30-second trailer? Do you think you're gonna like that storyline better than the Mandalorian storyline we've seen for 3 years?
See, like
Or do
I
you
don't
like
think
me think it's all the same story, but now part of it's written by Filoni?
I don't see it. I don't see the Star Wars as like pitting them against each other. I just don't. I like just give me more Star Wars is my philosophy. So I don't know.
If Ahsoka kills Hammerhead in any show, I will personally go down to the ranch and anywhere where Mickey Mouse has stuff happening, and I will destroy all of them.
I'm gonna go,
There you
guys. I'm on Burns' channel in like 2 minutes. So
see
Yeah,
John.
okay, yeah. So
come over to Burns. We'll see you over there.
all right, buddy. So yeah, you Ahsoka lover.
Yeah.
That starts before Christmas, right?
I want to say it does. I can't
Fall?
remember the. Yeah, like I think it was supposed to happen in the fall, but maybe it's pushed a bit later. I can't remember the release date, but
There goes Puppy again. So I think we get Secret Wars this summer or late this spring, right?
in June. I think
I'm gonna guess 8 or 10 episodes, similar to other shows. And then is it this year we also see
the
more
Marvels.
Loki? Oh,
I want to
there's
say
Marvels
Loki
too.
and the Marvels. I can't remember.
The Marvels is a
release schedule.
theater release movie, right?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
And Loki and Secret Invasion are Disney Plus shows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's next. I think
Secret
I'm gonna
Invasion's
cancel my
next.
Disney Plus for a couple months until something comes out, because there's nothing on Disney I'm going to watch.
The
like,
next
to
stuff
be
is
fair.
the next stuff is Visions. I think on May 4th.
Oh, that's May the 4th, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that'll be 15 minutes.
Yeah.
No, that was the cartoon that Dave Filoni made. That was a total of 12 minutes. The Visions, I think, was
Tales
a
of
good
the
half
Jedi.
hour, 45 minutes of. Yeah, the Tales of the Jedi was just like. I've seen longer commercials.
Well,
but it was
Visions
fun.
episodes were like 10, 15 minutes as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, no, there's a little more content there. I actually look forward to the stop motion, the Wallace
The
and
art
Gromit
from Hardman. Yeah,
because
I love Hardman.
That's awesome stuff, man. That's like you and me playing with our toys and making high end videos of it. Like, yeah, I look forward to it, man. And like I was saying about those short little cartoon things, those weren't so bad. Like they can tell a quick little story, or 3 quick little stories, and they worked on those only for a month in the animation studio, and same thing with live action. Since all you need is a guy in a costume, and you can put whatever you want behind him, you could do a quick little dialogue scene, whether like it's Luthen's speech or, it doesn't have to be an important speech like that, but because those are short little 5-10 minute little scenes with dialogue, it adds a lot to the story. And it'd be neat if they did shoehorn a commercial or 2 in there that maybe told some stories, as opposed to a trailer which just teases some shit and maybe makes you think something that's not going to happen.
But it's got like Star Wars storytelling. Like as much as I want as much content as possible, I will consume whatever they produce. But you have to figure with smaller bite-sized pieces like that, they're slightly less marketable, like and whatnot, in terms of like how do they sell toys and other merch off them, right? So they probably even though they cost less to produce, they probably don't have as big of an ROI for Lucasfilm.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I know I see a lot of people talk about the merchandising side about it, and Mickey Mouse this and Disney this, and I don't like, as someone who's worked in lots of different industries and knows how a lot of marketing works and stuff like that. That stuff's all like an afterthought. Like, if Tom Brady wins a Super Bowl, they don't film the commercials of him making a Super Bowl a year before he even plays in the Super Bowl. It's all an after effect of what just happened. Like, so when it comes to like Grogu and stuff, like, yes, there was lost marketing opportunities because it was kept secret from the majority of the people and stuff. That still happens now. There's still shit that's kept secret.
Yeah.
They know they're not going to make money off it, but I mean, they have to keep it secret for the good of the brand. And so that might mean that Bob Iger might not know about some of these stories, or Kathleen Kennedy might not know something that everyone assumes, she wrote or puts the stamp of approval on. It did seem a little bit this year that maybe there was someone that influenced a little bit of Mandoverse. I don't want to believe that, because I really hope that the mouse does not have as much pull as people think it has. I think the storytellers that we love, and now it's turning into the Filonis and the Favreaus, and sorry, the guy's name who made Andor. It's falling into these guys' hands, these guys and girls' hands, to make all the new content that we're devouring. And if we end up buying toys and merchandise because of it, that's just an add-on bonus, because at the end of the day, they're making this content to either sell movie tickets or subscriptions to their streaming platforms. Anything after that, it's a bonus, right? Merchandise and toys and candy and toilet papers and you name it, right? But
I agree with Jonathan on that point.
So I'm going to give this season, because it's more of a breakdown of the season, an 8.5 out of 10. Like, I loved it. I didn't love it like I loved the Andor series in general, but the Mando universe right now is still number one in my heart. It brought back Star Wars to live action when we had a good 20-year kind of break. Maybe not 20 years since the sequels, but more than 20 years from the prequels, which a lot of people is the last Star Wars that they remember. But yeah, I'm all for it, man. I'm 51 years old. Bring on more Star Wars. I want to see it all before I leave this planet. So, enjoy the rest of your weekend, Sir Eric, and thanks for joining me.
Thanks,
give the
Rick.
baby and the wife a big hug for all of us. We're all very, very happy for you.
Thanks.
And thanks for making some time out of your day to come hang with me and talk this nerdy stuff. Thank you, Jonathan and JT and Chris and Gary Force and Connor and Captain Spaulding and everyone who was able to join us today. You guys are all greatly appreciated, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll leave you on a little song from Tom Green.
Left coast is the best coast.
New from Left Coast Graphics, the Enamelian Falcon spaceship pin. Collect them all